people start to get, should I really raise my hand? 3, right? And people are like, no, even if I can only speak for 3 minutes, I won't say it. Now, I will talk about something that is a bit more technical, and I will talk about something that probably matters to the content eventually. But let's have a discussion here, right? So, can you tell me, when you're making a speech, and you want to speak for 7 minutes, what are the most basic components? What are the most basic things that you think in your speech you can never forget? You have to say it all the time. Is there something like that? What would you do to start a speech, for example?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Anything else? Indeed, you say that, right? In fact, many people say that, and there are actually like certain procedures in saying so. Because we're pretending to be in parliament, right? In fact, it is not absolutely correct to talk only about ladies and gentlemen. I think traditionally people would say members of the august house, right? So instead of addressing people like ladies and gentlemen, as if you're a TV host, right? You don't address them like that. You address them as august house, member of this august house. Right? So you probably do have these kind of things as filler, right? But besides that, besides addressing everyone, what else do you do when you start a speech?
You have an opening line to show your stance.
Opening line, right? Which is very important to show your stance. And basically, I would say that it probably would depend, like how you define the word stance, right? So it probably would be a more important issue when you're a prime minister or leader of opposition talking about it. But basically, right? This is a strange thing, right? If you go do research, go read about research and everything, like whether you're talking about public speaking or you're talking about debate as a whole, right? This is something people always say. How do you make other people remember what you say? How do you make other people get convinced about what you say? And one of the things that is magical is about repetition. Right? But I'm not saying that you repeat in a really ugly way. Right? You repeat in an elegant way. And that's basically how you structure your speech. People say you do 3 things in a speech, actually. You give a preview of what you want to talk about. You talk about what you want to talk about. And you finally review what you have talked about. Right? It's kind of strange, right? I haven't seen any kind of research or whatever, but like 3 has always been like a magical number everywhere, right? In debate, you go into debate, many people say, I have 3 rebuttals, and then I'll give you 3 arguments, right? You don't know why, but people just feel like 3. When somebody says, I have 2 arguments, right? And you feel, oh, that's a little bit too few, right? And you say, I have 4 arguments. People will say, oh, that's a bit too much, right? You have 3. People feel, okay, that's just about right, right? And it's a similar case, right? So I want you to keep these things in mind. The first thing you actually do when you start a speech is you give a preview, right? Why do you know why we want to give you a preview? True, that's exactly the question I'm asking you. Why do you need to tell other people what you are going to talk about?
To get their attention.
Okay, so the first function of such thing is that we call it attention getter, right? So it gets attention from other people. In fact, right, when you're previewing your speech, you usually want to have a very unique way of opening your speech, right? You don't want to have a very boring way of opening your speech. You go off. I don't want to talk to you, but I have to talk anyway. Let's start our speech. Right? You don't do that, right? And people are like, okay, I'm even more sleepy. Right? You open your line by using something to attract people. Right? So a quote would be good, right? If you know. Right? If you don't know, like use something that strikes people. Right? Use something that fits into your paradigm. Right? Yet it is interesting to hear. Right? Don't sing a song. Right? You can't be that dramatic. But if you have a quote, right, let's say you go to a debate about equality, right, and then you start your speech by saying, I have a dream, right? That probably would help you, right? Because you get people's attention and you get to your point, right? Because if you understand what like Martin Luther King was talking about, basically it's about equality, right? Right? You talk about how Martin Luther King have like the dream of equality and how we should do that, right? So you want to have a preview to get attention. What else do you want to do with your preview? What else? Besides getting attention, what else do you do with it? You show to your judge that you are structured. In fact, right, if you follow the debate really well, sometimes when you listen to their speech, even if you don't get to understand how much content or how much sense they are making, right? The first thing you will probably feel is that how structured they are. And this is very intuitive, right? Like if you actually start the debate better, you will find that the more structured you are, the more likely you are going to be a better debater. Right? In fact, when you want to discuss things in detail, you need structure as well. Like discussing things in detail is basically about breaking things down, right? And eventually it's all about structure. So you want to show people in the first place that you have structure. How do you show you have structure? Now, I want you to start following this discussion with a topic in mind. Okay? So let's just say that for our discussion for that 1 hour, we will use this topic, right? It's not going to be a serious topic. I want to give you a somewhat more funny topic like I give in the morning. Let's say the topic is that this house would ban all people from eating meat. Okay? So we had that in the morning as POI practice, right? What do you say? What do you think you can do to show that you are going to have a structure? What can you probably say if you want to preview your speech?
Why it's necessary to do that?
Okay, you probably want to talk about in your speech why is it necessary to ban people from eating meat, right? What else would you say?
Justification.
But justification is basically why you want to do so, right?
The consequence.
The consequence. Now, if you think about it, right, it eventually matters to what exactly is the content you try to say in this debate, right? I want you to keep in mind, you want to have a structure, you want to show that structure in your preview. But I also want you to keep in mind that this is a structure that needs to make sense, right? Sometimes people do this, right? Tell me if you think it is good, right? Go into a debate, I'm judging a debate, and I saw the debater suddenly speaking like this, right, and saying, ladies and gentlemen, this house believes that we should ban people from, this house will ban people from eating meat. We believe that food and meat is a very important topic. In order to talk about this important topic, let me give you 3 rebuttals and 4 arguments. I will first talk about my 3 rebuttals and then talk about my 4 arguments one by one. Do you think that helps? Why not? Why not? Because I'm literally spending 30 seconds without telling you anything. Okay? It's good for you to say, okay, I have 3 rebuttals, and then I will talk about why is it good for us not to eat meat, what kind of environmental consequence we're going to have, and what kind of consequence on healthcare we're going to have, right? That would be a much better preview. Why? Because you're telling people what you're trying to say, right? Instead of telling them, I have 3 arguments. The first argument is a very fundamental issue. The second argument is another important thing. And the third argument is about the benefit. You don't give us vague and unclear words. You need to be specific, right? If you can do that, you give us a structure by saying that, okay, I'll give you 3 rebuttals, and I'm going to talk about these things, right? And you probably would be good if you name these things, right? Now, let's take a look at what you would like to say, right? There are certain things you would like to say all the time. Right, so we move on to the second part. It's not a preview of what you want to say. It is now talk what you want to say, right? What are these things that you will always say when you're making a speech in the debate? Do you want to rebut? Yes or no? Yes, right? So if you want to divide it content by content, I would say, okay, you have 2 major parts, what you want to say, right? One part is the rebuttal, your response to the speaker before you, right? The second part is your argument, your own unique contribution to the debate, right? So we'll talk about your rebuttal and your argument. But in order to fill up your 7 minutes, let me ask you, how much rebuttal would you give? 2, like, what do you mean by 2? 2 what? 2 or 3 rebuttals. I would rather ask you to judge with a measure of time instead of a measure of number, right? So I can probably say that I'll give you 2 rebuttals, right? They said that it benefits the environment. That's bullshit. They said it's going to benefit your health. That's also ridiculous. Now let me move on to my argument. You don't do that, right? Why? Because you haven't really rebutted it, right? So I want you to make sure that when you go and rebut, you go and talk about the issues, right? And that's actually better judged by how much time you spend. In fact, right, if you want to adequately deal with a speech that happens before you for 7 minutes, I would say it would be a good investment if you put into it 2 or 3 minutes, right? So you can probably have a 30-second preview, right? And a 3-minute rebuttal. That is already 3 minutes and a half, right? The question though is, what kind of thing do you rebut and how much you rebut? Now, let me ask you another question. Do you think you have to rebut each and everything the other side says?
No.
When I say I have 3 rebuttals, where do you think I should put the most important rebuttal? Would it be the first one, the second one, or the third one? Usually we put the most important thing first, right? We give it the most time. Now, I'm not joking, right? This is true, even though it sounds a bit ridiculous. Sometimes the more time you dedicate to a certain thing, the more persuasive you become, right? Sometimes, actually, when it comes to analyzing things, it's about how you creatively change your words, right? You use different sentences to literally talk about the same thing, but if you are creative enough, and I don't feel bored by you repeating yourself, you will probably be successfully regarded as someone that is persuasive, right? People tend to have this kind of a feeling. If you dedicate more time to something, right, I will feel it as more important. I'm not saying that you should basically stand there and say, it is wrong, it is wrong, it is wrong, it is absolutely wrong, extremely wrong, totally wrong, and I cannot accept that, right? You can't do that, right? What I'm saying is that you use your time and you try to use it well, right? We'll go back and talk about these, right? So you do want to make sure that you don't need to rebut each and everything in their speech, but you rebut at least the most important things in their speech, right? And when you do that, you try to prioritize, right? When you are talking about your rebuttal, you probably will put your first rebuttal as the most important one, second as the somewhat lesser important, third as the somewhat not as important. Sometimes you have more rebuttal, right? Sometimes you have less. It depends on the speech in front of you, right? That means that in order to do so, you need to listen well to their speech in front of you, right? Ahead of you. Now, when it comes to your own argument, did you guys have a discussion about ARE structure for argument?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Was there a discussion about this? So you all know that usually when you want to make an argument, we want you to have an assertion, then you have reasoning, and then you have evidence, right? But more than that, you probably would do well if you have a linkage between your argument to the topic, right? So if you look at a more academic setting, people talk about two-minute model for argumentation. We call it with different names. We call it claim, warrant, and data, right? So claim is basically an assertion, warrant is basically the reasoning, and data is basically the evidence, right? So you need to break down your arguments, right? And when you break down your arguments, you make it step by step, right? So that's for all your arguments that you want to have, right? And finally, if you finish your argument, you probably would like to have some review, right? What do you think you would talk about in your review?